Welcome to the InfoLive TV weekly debate at our Jerusalem studio. With me is Yoni Ben Mena, Director General of Israel Radio, and Hanna Sinyora, longtime peace activist and co-chairman of IPCRI. Today our first topic is the Palestinian territories. Yoni, on the backdrop of the scheduled meeting between President Abbas and Prime Minister Olmert, it has been reported that Israel is considering a request by the Palestinians, by Abbas, to deploy the Jordanian army's Palestinian Badr Brigade in the West Bank. How can such a move assist President Abbas?
I heard some denials from the Palestinian side. You know, this is an old story. Every time they bring it up, every few months, the same story about Badr Brigade coming from Jordan to the West Bank to assist Abbas. I don't think Israel will agree to it, and I don't think that this story is true, essentially. And I don't, even if Israel will allow the Badr Brigade to be deployed in the West Bank, I don't think that it will help Abbas, because these soldiers of the Palestinian soldiers from Badr Brigade are trained to confront a military force, not to fight Hamas and not to fight terrorist organizations. And I don't see what effect it might have on the ground. But essentially, as I told you, I believe this story is not true.
Let me correct your information. First of all, there is no request, and politically, the Palestinian Authority will not request the Badr Brigade. Also, the Badr Brigade, although a few months ago were in full force with younger people, about 2,000, now because of monetary problems, they are down to 500, and they are not effective anymore.
Chairman Abbas, President Abbas has made it clear that at the moment he will not engage in dialogue with Hamas. Does this mean two separate Palestinian entities in the future? One, a Hamas state in Gaza, and a Palestinian Authority in the West Bank?
On the ground, actually, what we have Gaza separated from the West Bank, controlled by Hamas, military-wise. And what we have is the Fatah controlling the West Bank with the help of Israel. I heard the position of President Abbas, but I think that this is only true for the short term. On the long term, he will have to start the dialogue with the Hamas at some stage. There are Arab pressures, there are people trying to mediate between Fatah and Hamas. Abbas looks at it as a coup d'etat against his legitimacy, which is true. It's a coup d'etat, a military coup d'etat by the Hamas. But as I said, on the long run, the Palestinian interest has to be above everything. And the Palestinian interest is to have Gaza and the West Bank united in a way, or connected in a way, for an independent Palestinian state. This is the dream of the Palestinians, and Abbas will not be able to ignore it.
Well, for the first time you are right. On the issue of your last piece of analysis is that no Palestinian leader will ever accept or acknowledge that we should continue in the way we are divided in Gaza and the West Bank. Yes, now at the beginning, because of the emotional outcome of the coup d'etat, people said we are not ready to talk, we have to go back to how it used to be before. But right now, internally, even within Fatah, there is a movement to restart the dialogue. All the factions under the PLO are requesting that. And what is more important, there is the Arab pressure, especially of Saudi Arabia, to have both Fatah and Hamas resume their dialogue. And I believe maybe in the short term, the situation for the next 2, 3, maybe 6 months will continue the same as it is today. But eventually, the two sides will have to talk and probably go to some kind of early elections to try to overcome the present impasse. The man in the street does not like to see Fatah or Hamas not working together, because both of them are important Palestinian movements, and we have to learn a culture of political partnership. I mean, you have Likud, you have Labour, you have right wing, you have leftists in Israel, but they all work for the interests of the state of Israel. So in the Palestinian camp, the man in the street wants to see all the parties work for the interests of the Palestinian people.
Egypt. Egypt doesn't seem to be doing that much to bolster Abbas. They have reiterated their objection to the deployment of an international force along the Gaza border. Is Egypt's policy, what is Egypt's policy vis-a-vis Abbas and the Hamas takeover in the Gaza Strip?
Well, in the first days after the coup d'etat, President Mubarak used the same terminology of Abbas and calling it also a coup d'etat, but then he changed his position toward Hamas, and now he's trying to be the mediator, not taking a position and trying to mediate between Fatah and Hamas, and this is because of the Arab interest, not to be involved directly in the crisis, but to be a mediator. As for the international forces, the deployment of the international forces, I think Mubarak doesn't want these forces to be deployed on the Egyptian side of the border with Gaza, but I don't think he would mind that these forces will be deployed on the Palestinian side. Basically, I don't think that these international forces can prevent the smuggling of weapons or can, take over the security situation there. It will not be effective. It's enough to see what happened with UNIFIL in South Lebanon after the Al-Qaeda terror attack. And I think that once these UNIFIL forces will be attacked by Hamas or by other or Al-Qaeda members in Gaza, they will not stay there and it will not be effective. So this whole idea is not good, basically.
The role of Egypt has been always important as facilitator, sometimes mediator, trying to represent the Palestinian point of view to the Israeli government, to the United States and other international quarters. Here it's urgent and needed also in facilitating the exchange of prisoners and the release of Gilad Shalit, because Egypt is actually doing this role between Hamas and the Israeli government. Now, on the issue of the international force, something like UNIFIL, I agree with Yoni that this probably will be on the Israeli-Palestinian border and not the Palestinian-Egyptian border. However, the conditions are not mature for that force, although 10 European countries recently said that they are ready to participate in such a force. I believe the coming negotiations between Olmert and Abbas, and in my opinion, this force might be also necessary to resolve the issue of the borders with Jordan and the borders with Egypt. Because now we are also on an impasse with the present situation with Hamas in control of Gaza, is that the borders with Israel and Egypt so far has been closed, and there is a huge humanitarian issue that has to be resolved, and as fast as possible. More than 25 people have died just waiting on the Egyptian side of the border so far.
My last question, Lebanon, from a Palestinian point of view. We've seen recently, and within the last 2 months, very heavy clashes between the Lebanese army and Fatah al-Islam, Islamist militants in northern Lebanon, in Nahar al-Bared refugee camp. We've seen, as you mentioned, the attack on UNIFIL forces in the south, also said to have been perpetrated by Al-Qaeda-linked or Islamist Palestinian militants. Hanna, do you see this strengthening of radical elements among Palestinians in Lebanon as a...
Well, Palestinians are not involved. Actually, this is an Arab movement. The issue is that they are using the Fatah name, but it's Fatah Islam and not the Fatah movement. And the Palestinian movements under the PLO are actually working together with the Lebanese government in order to sort of distance themselves from what is happening at the moment in Lebanon. The way of resolving the issue in Lebanon is really to Israel actually working with what we call the Arab Peace Initiative, because this is the way to resolve the issue with the Palestinians, with the Syrians, and the Lebanese. As long as the Syrian-Israeli conflict, which in a way is a result of the capture of the Golan Heights in the 67 war, if that issue is not resolved, Syria will use all its means, and we are saying that it's using Hezbollah in Lebanon as a way to actually destabilize the situation, while its borders with Israel are actually very quiet since 1967. So the way to resolve the issue in Lebanon, with Syria, and with the Palestinian side right now is probably to combine the Arab Peace Initiative with the roadmap process. And in the roadmap process, we should not be stuck with phase one, although right now Hamas is actually doing phase one in Gaza by taking all the military equipment of all the other organizations in the Gaza Strip. And I believe also President Abbas in the West Bank has said that he wants to remove all the weapons from all the militias that are present in the West Bank. So in a way, we are moving on phase one. It's not yet complete. Israel also has to do a parallel thing in phase one, which is to freeze settlement activity, which Israel is not doing also at the moment. In this way, Tony Blair is coming to the picture right now as the super envoy appointed by the quartet. I think for him, if he start discussing what we call final status issues, the future of Jerusalem, the future of the settlements, the issue of the refugees, the borders between the two states, in this way we will have a political horizon, and we can move forward, but it has to be on a multilateral track, which is Israel-Palestine, Israel-Syria, and Israel-Lebanon. This is the only way available right now to us. Otherwise, we will lose the momentum of having a two-state solution, and we will be stuck in a conflict that will be maybe generational.
Mm-hmm. Let me get back to the point of Lebanon. Do you think that a peace process, be it the Arab Peace Initiative, the roadmap between Israel and the Palestinians, or Israel and Syria, will really influence the tensions and the clashes between the Lebanese government and the militants in the Palestinian refugee camps, or do you think they're headed towards a civil war? How can that avert a civil war?
The militants in Lebanon among the Palestinians are actually in a way not fighting with the Lebanese government. The recent what happened in Nahr al-Barid and elsewhere in Lebanon actually is an Arab fundamentalist military organization that is doing the same thing in Iraq against the Americans, probably with links to Al-Qaeda, but not to the Palestinian side.
Mm-hmm. Yoni, civil war in Lebanon, do you foresee
No,
it?
I don't think so. I think I agree with Mr. Sinyora. This Fatah al-Islam is affiliated to Al-Qaeda or maybe to the Syrians. That's the different versions. But and there are some Palestinians who are members of Fatah al-Islam, but it's not a Palestinian organization. This is true. This is an Arab movement which is working against the Lebanese government. And I think there is a consensus there because Hezbollah is also against them. They are not supporting them. And all the Palestinian organizations are against them because they are harming the Palestinian interest. And there is a consensus to help the Lebanese army to fight them and to eliminate them. And I think eventually this is what will happen. The Lebanese army is working very successfully in Nahr al-Barid refugee camp, and eventually I think they will be able to make them surrender, or they will get rid of them eventually. But definitely it will not cause a civil war.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hanna Sinyora. Thank
Yeah.
you.